Hey guys, what's going on? It's Harveer, and welcome back to Don't Be a Basic Biscuit. Today I have Luis Omar Figueroa, the CEO of Hudson Group Realty Network, and he's also the podcast host of Real with Omar. So what's going on, Omar? I'm gonna call you Omar.
Fine.
How's everything going?
Yo, man, first of all, thanks for having me on. Second of all, I just played a few basketball games and nobody beat me up. It's just part of playing physical basketball. And I'm glad to be on here. I'm glad to be on your platform. Thanks for inviting me. And love to discuss all things marketing.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. We honestly, like, this always happens when I bring someone on and then we start talking about what we're gonna talk about, and I'm like, wait, we gotta stop because this is good stuff here, and I want everyone to hear it.
Yeah,
Well, I guess the theme of this episode is about reputation,
right.
and that being kind of one of the best ways to market yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
Clearly, you have a great reputation, and when we were talking about the topic of the episode, you were mentioning how that is the best marketing, is like doing your best work, and then
yeah.
that leads to different types of marketing, which is like word of mouth marketing, which is probably one of the best ways to market yourself. So tell me how you kind of started up, and tell me about your life. Just, introduce yourself to the crowd.
All right, guys. Nice to meet you. To the kids in the back, my story starts with real estate and financing in 03, 04, 05, which is a long time ago. In 99, to go further back, I opened up a liquor store and then I had a nightclub for a little while. And
Oh,
a friend
okay.
of mine, yeah, I'm giving you the whole background. And then a friend of mine was working in the well, let me not mess it up. So then I met my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and we decided we were going to buy a house. So I still working those two businesses, which are cash heavy businesses, which are not big taxable documentation businesses. I went to the bank and applied for a mortgage. I went to Norfolk, which became Capital One on Crosby Avenue in the Bronx, and I was denied. Right, I sat down. It was a really bad experience. So I
Oh, wow.
sat down with the banker that usually takes my deposits, and she sits down. She opens up this book, and she's asking me questions, and I have no type of I have no sense of where I'm going, and I'm like, hey, this is what I have. Basically, I told her, I said, we have 750 FICO, we have $50,000, and I want to buy a house. What can we do? So she asked me some questions, and after answering each question, she would flip a page. I remember this like it was yesterday. It was a very long time ago. And at the end, she closes the book and looks at me and says, "Yo, I cannot help you. I'm sorry." And that was it.
What?
That was my first, yeah. That was my first. So my why was too great. So I called one of my friends that was in the business. He wasn't a loan officer. He was like a closer. He's a closing department in the bank. And I said, yo, listen, everybody's getting in America is getting a loan right now. I was told I can't get a loan. I don't really believe it. I have the house already. Of course, I identified the house. Can you help me? So he goes, oh, I got you. Let me introduce you to this guy named Milton from Countrywide. I'm just saying these names because these names are 20 years old. Some of these guys are not in the game anymore. I don't even know if they're alive anymore, but I'm just giving you the names. So I spoke to him on the phone. He said, what are you looking to do? I told him. He's like, I got you. Don't worry about it. Got me an approval letter. Let's say 90 days later, we closed on the first house. We got a 2-family house. My wife was pregnant at the time. My mother moved into the first floor. I was on the second floor. That was the first time. After I bought the house, then the owner of the bank, my boy was telling him, "Well, you got me, Omar. He knows everybody. He gets shit done." Like he just started amping me up to a point where the guy was like, "Well, let me meet this guy because obviously he talks so much
Yeah.
about it." And he wanted
I want to meet that guy. Let's go.
the owner wanted to end up investing in the Bronx again. And in the Bronx back in early 2000s, the South Bronx was a very tough area. If you didn't know somebody, it could be dangerous. He drives up to the store. He tells me the spiel. I know nothing about real estate or finance. I know nothing. So I know liquor stores. I know, other stuff. So he's like, look, find me some properties. I'll pay you real estate commission, 6%. And he started breaking down these things to me. And I'm like, okay, so 6% over like 300,000. Oh, that's decent. That's 18,000. Like, I'm doing the math, right? I'm like, I'm starting
Yeah,
to wake
that
up.
sounds nice.
I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, because I'm busting my ass over here selling bottles of Henny at $33 a bottle. I'm buying them at 25. I make $8. I got to do like a million times.
For real,
Anyway,
just to make that one deal close.
pick it up. Right. So what I do is I end up finding a property. He buys it. We closed on it. I get paid, so it's real now. So I'm like, oh shit, this is real. This is really a way of business, right? So I remember we did something else, another deal, and I went to his bank in Syosset, in Long Island, and he pulls me into his office. He goes, listen, man, how much do you make at the liquor store? And I told him like, I'm just giving him numbers. I was like 120 gross, whatever. He was like, yo, bro, I got guys making twice to three times that a month here. He was like, you're smart. You speak two languages. You know numbers. You need to get involved with this stuff. He was like, I'm just telling you. I'm not selling you. I'm just telling you. You should do that. So it piqued my interest. So I figured that was my second. I got my bachelor's from NYU, and this was my second like career education. So my sister and I had a worker at the store, and I did a beta test. I said, all right, let me give this 6 months. Again, this is during like the really bad times in the market. It's not great. It's kind of right before the big meltdown. So I was there for like 3 to 6 months, and I ended up doing like 250,000 in gross fees. Right. So I was like, I did that.
You blew it out of the water.
With the math, I was like, all right, wait, hold on. I did 250 here. I was using this money to help pay for the store because I wasn't there. I was like, yo, the math is not mathing. So I shut down the store. And I went over there and I went full fledged, man. I went full fledged. I went through the meltdown. I went through a few things. I ended up going to another place, Affordable Financial, with a friend of mine named Brian. And in 2012, I was told by Emigrant Mortgage, they were like, listen, if you want to do commercial loans, because I was doing all the loans, and I speak Spanish. So the Spanish clientele, especially, if you speak their language, they want you to do everything. They don't want to they trust you. If you earn their trust, they're your client forever. So they're like, look, I want to buy this dry cleaner. I want to buy this building. I don't know how to do this. So I had to educate myself because I had the client, right? I had the client. So I was like, all right. So doing good business, walking them through it, explaining it to them. I just naturally grew. So going back to 2012, I opened up my own platform for commercial lending, and Emigrant came back and said, listen, we want you to, if you're going to originate commercial mortgages in New York State, we need you to have your real estate broker license. So I was like, all right. So I worked under somebody else. I did all the numbers. I did all the deals. All the short sales were happening. So I was able to lock up a few deals, get my own brokerage. And that's how the real estate arm of Hudson Group was born behind me. It wasn't really super active, but going back to branding, right? Going back to doing good work. What would happen is like you'd have friends of yours. Like they'd be like, oh, Omar, I need this loan. Or like, okay, I got you. He's like, yo, I'm going to buy this house. It's on Zillow. I want you to check it out for me, or can you represent us? And I was like, well, I don't really do that. I don't really do that yet. He was like, well, I know the way you did my loans. I want you to represent me on the sale. So I was like, all right. So I represented one guy. And then he's like, oh, I got to sell my house too. So it just became a thing, right? Like it became a vertically integrated thing where the relationship was so good with the client that they just want you to handle it and it's not so much a dollars and cents things. And I think we should talk about that on this podcast because a lot of new people come in and they get excited about the big numbers. The numbers are great. Numbers are good.
Yeah.
If you get the deals at a certain size, if they're not good, the thing is you got to do it anyway, right? So if you commit to doing a deal, no matter what you're making, whether it's 100,000 or 1,000, you got to give the same service. That becomes the thing. That becomes your brand. That becomes the feeling people get when they hear your name. And that speaks in the room when you're not there. And that's the part.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's word of mouth marketing where your reputation, people don't realize how important that is. So how important has your reputation been and how has that led to word of mouth marketing for you? Like, how have you seen that happen?
Dude, I mean, it's funny how it all works together, right? People, when in 2019, 2020, when COVID started happening, I pivoted. I was like, I had started a NAREP chapter. I did a lot of networking things. And to be honest with that, they're good for certain people. I believe I wasn't in the right position in my life to do that. And what I mean by that is your business should be running itself for you to have time to participate in all these other things. To me, I was kind of 50-50 always in and out because I was like, I'm an operator. And, for whatever reason, like I felt like I was being split in half. So what I did was during COVID or right before COVID, I pivoted. I said, you know what? I'm going to try social media. I'm going to try social media because social media, what I love about it was it works while I'm not working. So we have these phones that everybody uses and they're always on it. And I could be here working, like right now in my home office, I could be here working on a deal, doing numbers, doing spreadsheets, shit that people don't care about. And post goes up at 3:35, right? Go Planable, whatever program you use, right? It's working while you're working on something else. And that to me is a super win. So that to me became very transparent, became very easy. Like people get to know you. I've been doing this 5 or 6 years. Some people still don't know what I do, which is crazy.
that's,
But
that's not good, man.
because they love the content, but what is it that you really do? I'm like, what? I was like, I
They're
talk
like,
about
this guy is a full-time podcaster.
yeah. I'm like, I do real estate, I do mortgage, but this is all I talk about. Like, so I don't know if I post on my stories all the time, like the written word, right? I'm like, yo, please listen. Don't just please listen. Like, because I've gotten that a few times when I run certain things organically and certain things I run as an ad, right? An ad is something that you want somebody to see and listen to specifically. When I run ads, when I talk about like a foreclosure bailout program, or I talk about bank statement program or stuff like that, people pay attention. They're like, oh, I didn't know you did that. I was like, but what are you doing following me then? Like I have so much data. I have 5 years worth of social media, heavy social media content. I have built a foundation. I was like, what do you guys? And the crazy part is that you just got to kind of keep pushing the message. And like I said, the biggest thing is your work, right? You do good work, you make people feel good. They're going to talk about you when you're not in the room. And if you don't make them feel good, they're going to talk about you when you're not in the room. So it's
Yeah,
better.
I
Like
love
if,
that.
if you're in a service provided business, you gotta work, for the client,
That's
and
so
be good.
important. And you're
Well, I
right.
mean,
You're absolutely right. I love what you said there. Like they're gonna either talk about good about you or they're gonna talk shit about you.
they're gonna
Depends on
talk.
what you did to earn it. Because you
Right,
did earn it, right? You either earned being good or you earned being bad.
right.
And that's really important. Yeah, I love that. And okay, so another thing that you were talking about, I was like, all right, cool. So why did you start the podcast? And you really kind of started jumping into some good stuff there. And I was like, all right, hold up. I'm gonna ask that while we're actually on. And
Okay.
so why did you start the podcast
Well,
for yours?
this
Real with
goes back.
Omar.
This goes back. Like a lot of things that I talk about are really my personal experiences and reflections upon. I'm a little older than you, right? So, I have young sons that are 29, 23, 20, like young men. And I remember growing up, and I remember not seeing a lot of things. Like I'm the CEO of multiple platforms, right? I own, I own a real estate bank, a commercial mortgage bank. I own a real estate company. I'm an investor. I own 71 units. I'm a fintech. I'm a fintech. I've invested in an app called Modi. I've written a book. I've done shit, right? But there was nobody. I can't say one guy, one person, and say, hey man, that guy right there, yo, I'd like to try to do that. It's like inspirational. And I really felt like there was not enough people that look like me or talk like me that
Not
that
enough
that were, that were being
representation.
that were being documented in some sort of and this is not, I'm not being backhanded at all when I say this, in like an intelligent fucking format, right? Like we will always kind of be like, we'd always be like the fucking, I don't know, the villain or the fucking car thief or some stupid shit on TV. And going back to, again,
True.
to young kids in the back, right? I was born in '74, so I'm watching TV in the '80s and '90s as a kid. Imagery was very different. Nobody really understood like how deep that hit, how much resonation. Like you go to, like, I don't want to say suburbia because I live in suburbia now in Westchester. But like there's a whole different relationship. We grew up, and I tell my kids this all the time. We grew up in the jungle, man. Like in the '80s and '90s, yo, you get robbed, you go
Yeah.
outside. Like if you go on the subway, you might not come back with the clothes you had on. I know it sounds so foreign to people. Yeah, the South Bronx, man,
It's
it's legit.
crazy.
It's real, and but it makes you really aware and also grateful for like the life that you lead now, right? Like for me, all the time I look at my life, I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like I laugh. Sometimes I laugh. Like that's crazy. Like, like it's great. I mean, I earn it. Nothing was given, and I'll continue to earn it. But I'm very aware of my privilege because, of where I come from. Right, I don't come from anything. My oldest son, he remembers a little bit of the struggle because he was around when I wasn't doing it like as well as I'm
Yeah,
doing now.
this is when
My
you're
youngest
building.
son, he thinks I make shit up. He's like, no, that's crazy. I'm like, bro, it's real. No, that's crazy. I'm like, all right. So I'm in the middle, right? I'm in the middle. But going back to why I started the podcast, um, intelligent conversations, man, between different ethnicities is really it. Is really it. And exchanging ideas in a format that is not condescending or derogatory. That was the most important part for me. Of course, the business part is, you want to be known. Yes. Of course, I don't think I've positioned my podcast the best way I could to be to grab like leads and attention like that for business, but that was never really my concept. My concept was really, hey man, here's a guy named Harveer. He's Indian descent, or I don't want to misquote, but
No, that's right.
and
You got it.
intelligent, and he talks real estate, and he's done his thing, and you can learn a thing or two from him, and
Yeah,
vice versa,
yeah.
right? Like that's all it is. That's all it is. It doesn't have to be a Ryan Serhant or just a guy that some people like that might look at us and may resonate with, or kind of like we feel more, what's the word I'm looking for, relatable to,
Yeah,
than
because it's
somebody
just another person that's just,
is
it
somebody so far
isn't that
away.
Ryan Serhant. That's what makes the add value there, because it's
Right,
somebody that did something right that you could learn from. Right.
right.
And you don't have to be the Ryan Serhant or like the top. You don't have to be the top guy, top girl,
Well,
to have anything good to say or something important
I
to
don't
say.
mean
Yeah.
that. What I mean by that is that he's such a, obviously he's done his thing. He's an icon, right?
Yeah, he's clearly
But
successful.
he's very unrelatable to some kids in the inner cities. Like that's not their truth, bro.
That's
Like
true. That's
they
true.
go home, there's no dad, there's no like like I'm not making this a sad story, but
It's
I'm
a true
telling you,
story and people
yeah,
need to hear it.
so many people, and people have to understand that. Listen, we all have our struggles, right? Like because people sometimes they see Instagram and social media is like highlight reels and everything's great. Look, we all go through some shit, right? I recently lost my mom, right? That was really big for me.
Sorry to hear that, man.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. I went through like 6 to 7 months of depression, like leading up to it. Like if you don't know me, you wouldn't know. Like you wouldn't
No,
know.
it's on the
Right,
inside.
right. But it's something I had to go through, right? And I say that to say everybody's going through something. So don't ever be jealous. Oh, I wish I had his life. Yo, you don't know what he had to pay to get there. And I said this on a piece of content, I'll repeat it. And you don't know if that person was willing to pay that, because we don't have a choice, right? We don't get that choice. We're
Yeah,
told, yo,
sometimes
this
it
is
just
it.
happens.
Right. So like like people look and be like, oh, I wish if I had this, if I had that. No, listen, what do you have? And what can you work with? And that's the way you should start.
There is a
If you're
price to
busy,
pay.
right, you're looking at it like they say, comparison to the thief of joy, right? Like, yo, look at what you have. Work on your strengths. Work on your weaknesses, but like, focus on your strengths to see if you can accelerate yourself. And like, be happy. Like, I'm happy from Ryan Serhant to Gary to all of us to you. I'm happy for everybody, bro. There's enough sun for everybody, and I believe I have to say that on your show because so many people work with a scarcity mindset, and they're like, no, no, no. I'm like, yo, man, I think you should go to Citibank for that deal because they have this really cool, give you free money thing, which I can't do. Right? I've told clients of that. Right? They're like, oh, we have to wait 6 to 12 months. I was like, okay, if you don't want to do that and you have your own money, then do your thing. But you shouldn't have an educated opinion or an educated, decision. It shouldn't be like people shouldn't railroad you. Going back to my personal experience with the first time I was denied a mortgage, my life could have went another way. I could have been like, yo, I'm not lendable. Right? I could have been like, oh man, I guess renting's for me. And then as I go, I make the second call, the third call, I get the house, I meet the guy who owns the bank. I learn how this works. I saw leverage. I learned about leverage. I learned about asset, depreciation, appreciation, cash flow, all the terms that everybody like throws on the internet all day. But you start learning them and applying them. You look 10 years later, you're like, oh shit, look, I've accomplished a little bit, right? That's pretty dope. But it's all through execution and practice, not just reading. Like I was in the mix, and I think because I was denied the first time, it made this like chip on my shoulder, and I was like, nah, you're not. It's not happening again. And I would always find a way, right? So that's the message for everybody, right? Like your tenacity will pull through, but going back to your marketing, the way you pull for yourself, you got to pull for your client, right? And they'll feel that because a lot of clients, they're buying their first time house, their first time investment, their first time house, whatever it is. It's a big decision. It's a lot of money, and you get overwhelmed, right? You've never put this amount of money behind an idea before, and
Yeah, it's the
like they
biggest
go, I'll
investment
put
of
this
their life.
money in. I was explaining like home ownership to my son, and I'm like, look, man, we bought this house for 360, we sold it for 650. 10 years later, yes, you made money, but you had to live somewhere anyway. There was tax write-offs. There was like I was breaking it down. The time is gonna pass no matter what. but understand what you're doing or how you're applying your money during that time is pretty important. Because here we are, we sold it, we doubled, and it's almost like a savings thing. We put it into something else. I was like,
Oh yeah, big time. It helps so many people that I know just being in this business, like buying that one property was the best decision they ever made in their life because it was like the snowball effect. It's like it allowed them to do things that they were not,
and it
able to
changes
do
the way you
before.
look at things, right? Owner, I tell that all the time. You go into a neighborhood of owners compared to a neighborhood of renters, and I'm not shitting on renters, because I get it, like they're renting it, so they feel entitled to, hey man, like I pay the rent, they should do everything else. But owner neighborhoods are a little different. The grass is always cut a little more. People like
Because
care a
they
little more.
really care.
Well, that shit. Shit. And then the neighbors be like, hey man, you good? Because your garbage is a little crazy. Not in an offensive way, but we
Yeah,
can talk.
yeah, but you notice these things,
Like
yeah.
I know I'm gonna sound very first world right now. Like we have a tennis court in my area, right? And it's shared by a few houses, and it was like dirty. So I went up to the president. I was like, "Hey man, you want me to get a power washer to get that done?" He was, "No, we got that." Like, and it wasn't like I wasn't being offensive. I was just saying, "Yo, this is our shit. I want it to look right,
Your
right?
quality,
Like,
it's
right. There's
partially yours,
pride.
and you have a standard to uphold, right?
There's pride in ownership. There's pride in ownership, and I think that's important for us to tell people because yes, it might seem far away. It's not, right? Because you can get in. But there is some financial discipline that comes with it. And I think that is not spoken about enough. Like, there's always the dollar in a dream dollar. Yeah, you're gonna have some tough days. The boiler breaks, the shit happens, you get a flood, it happens. But it could be in a tenancy situation where you call the landlord, he don't pick up for 2 days. And he calls you back after 2 days, after the toilet backed up, there's shit all over your floor. It's like, hey man, you should have gave me more time. I was like 2 days. Like, these are things that have happened to me when I
Yeah.
was a tenant. I was like, nah, bro, like it's not happening. And forget trying to get your money back from the landlord. They were like, nah, man, like I would have used this guy. I was like, while the shit, the feces was shooting all over the place, you would have waited to get another guy. Like, come on, man. Like it just becomes pick your heart, right? Pick your heart.
Yeah. Well, speaking of pride and ownership, you are a CEO of multiple platforms,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna bring that back into marketing. Like, what do you think was the most successful things that allowed you to market your brands, multiple brands? What do you think really made the biggest difference when it came to marketing your brands?
I had it was during COVID. And there's the thing, like if for anybody who's trying to learn about marketing, you should talk about things you want to be known for, right? So I remember there's one, I had closed this deal mid-COVID, right? Hard money loan, Brooklyn, New York, cashed out $1 million, whatever, a couple $1 million, da, 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 and I posted it, right? And I got so many hits from like financial advisors. Hey man, if your client needs money, like needs to do something with his money, they're like, so that became very clear to me. I was like, well, okay, so they're relating me to this. Obviously, it's a big transaction deal, so it gets attention. The more zeros, the more attention. But what people have to do is, and I even tell my team all the time. I was like, look, social media for me is different. It's more like, I'm getting a message out because I want people to know of me for certain things. So that is a concept. It's like having a TV channel. It's a constant pushing out of content of the same thing, like talking about loans or talking about real estate, talking about that. Like it's constant. Of course, you got to make it interesting. It's not like, and again, it goes back to, it's not a sales transaction. It's more of a branding and marketing concept where people know you for something. People eventually, like we all have a certain personalities, right? And we all have a certain, I'm just going to use this as a term, a certain flavor, right? Certain people like flavor, like your flavor, and they want to work with you. Why? Because of who you are, right? How you convey your message, how you explain things,
Yep,
whatever.
I
The
say
kind of
that all the
clothes
time.
you wear, the sports you play,
People
like
work for you because you're you.
right. They great, like they like the car you drive. Like there's something about you that they really, really kind of resonate with. And that's your job to get that out there. Let them know what you do, but let them know who you are. And then letting them know who you are will eventually lead to them looking for you for what you do. I don't know if that made any sense, but
No,
but
I'm actually writing this timestamp down because I really
oh,
like that. That's why I'm like 24:54.
yeah.
No, I'm not like texting someone right now. I was just like, yo, what's the timestamp right there? Because I really like that. No, that's yeah, for real. That's some good stuff, man. I mean, it is. I mean, from what I'm hearing repeatedly from you, it was you kind of pushing your message, and you
Yeah.
continuously push that message, and then you continuously bring this high quality of work that, and then you keep repeating that, right? And that has, seems to me, has become the biggest asset you've had,
Well,
is
that's
is
what I
is
have
your work.
first off. And second off, the one thing I think people kind of miss is selling is okay. Like right now, I have a few ads running on Instagram right now saying talking about foreclosure and bank statement program, just to let you know, yo, I do those. Call me if you want that. Call me if you want that. That's cool. But other things you have to do, and you're doing them for no direct ROI, right? Meaning you're taking phone calls, you're talking to people, you're trying to give them game, right? I was speaking at an event the other day, and I was like, my job is to put you all on. This is what I know. I'm gonna give you everything I know. Now execute it the way you can execute it, but just this is what I know. I can bring you this far, right? And maybe in the future you can pull me further. Who knows? But that's our job. So the thing is, people, I feel like sometimes people do things, I don't want to say with an ulterior motive, but with an expectation. And that's the wrong way to do it. Yo, I do it. Look, we could do it. Me and you got on a phone call through a friend of ours who will mention Rick, right? To see if we could vibe and talk. It was no
Yeah, he's
like,
great.
yo, I need you for this, and no, man, just yo, you want to shop? Let's do it. Let's do it. Like it's a win-win, right? So that's fine. Sometimes people only want to get on the phone if it's a win for them, and
Yeah,
at
like
the end
overly
of the day,
transactional. You can't be like
well,
that.
well, the long game, you might win right now, but life is a marathon, bro. So you winning this week, I'll see you in a year. I'll see you in 6 months. I'll see you in 2 years. I'll see you in
See, in
10 years.
5 years, right?
Right,
10 years.
right. Because you're gonna stick with that closed-minded behavior, and you'll also attract people with that closed-minded behavior, and eventually they'll vilify each other, right? Because there can only be so many one-sided wins, right? Where's the double win? Where's the communal win? Right? Think bigger.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not only that. It really is like I could try to sell someone like that's for getting into investing a two family, four family when they're not ready for it, right?
Right.
Like, or I could say, hey, let's get your feet wet. Let's get this cheap, condo or a single family or something that's more affordable for you to like test the waters. Or maybe let me teach you how to house hack or something so that you could just like kind of ease into it. Or I could just throw you right into it. You could, sink yourself with like, oh god, now I got to pay 10K for this roof. Oh, I gotta evict this person, and then you just like drown and go into bankruptcy. Like, or you do it the right way and you advise them the proper way and you really try to actually help them, and then they'll come back to you for that fourth family. Maybe they'll build a whole portfolio of multiple properties with you versus that one that you were trying to get,
And
that
the
big commission.
crazy part is that when you speak to your client, like, and this is something that I learned. I had this conversation with one of my guys recently, and it was a funny conversation, but I want to give it to you. It's like you can't have unconscious bias with your client, meaning like you can't, especially in the beginning of your profession, right? Like in the beginning of my profession, I was around certain guys. They were all young kids. They didn't have assets yet, so everybody was kind of like salesy. But I got really lucky. Like because I always had gone over relationships first, like saying, "Hey man, you need help? This is what I would do with that. Hit me if you need me, whatever." I'd always get in the room with people that had more money than me, right? And I remember one time the client, Bobby Garcia, rest in peace, he calls me up. He has like this 15% adjustable rate on his investment property, which is really his daughter's house. He's like, "Yo, look, we got to get out of this. It's time, whatever. Give me a 30-year fix." So I run the numbers, and I was able to get him a 75 LTV loan, and he owed like 83. I'm just using rough numbers. And what that means to the regular people is that I can get him a certain amount of loan, but he owed more money than I can get him a loan for.
Yeah.
I'm like stuck. I'm like, yo, all right, so there's no commission. I'll do it for free. Like that's my thinking, right? So I call him. I say, Bob, this is where we're at. You're in an adjustable 15%, but I got you 7 point whatever. It's 04, 05. I forgot what year it was, but whatever. I said, yo, it's in half. You're dropping your payment, fixed payment. You've done 30 years, but I can only get you this much money. He was like, all right, well, I'll bring the rest. And that blew my mind because I was like, because remember, I just started.
You're
So
like, I have to solve this. You didn't realize he could help.
let me just break it down because I'm fucking broke. And I'm thinking like a broke person. This guy owns multiple, Like, I don't want like 50, 60, 70 apartment buildings. Like, he has money, but I'm not thinking that way because I've never been around somebody like that. Like, I didn't know how to think that way. He was the one guy who's like, yo, look, if I gotta bring, he told me, I remember exactly, if I gotta bring a couple of nickels, let's do it, man. What do you need, 10, 15?
He goes,
Yeah,
nickels.
and I'm like, you know, I'm like 30 years old. I'm like, wow, is this how this works? Because I had never been around people with money, right? So then,
That's so
boom,
funny.
we close this. So now all of a sudden, I'm looking at everything different now. I'm like, the matrix is different. I'm like, wait a minute. If the guy has assets and he's willing to use it, like, I'm financially
That was a
educating
pivotal time
myself.
in your life, it
Right,
seems.
right. So these are one of the things that I learned, and I just say it on the screen because I want people when they're talking to clients to understand and look at it their way, not your way. Because maybe if you're early in your career, you're not there yet, right? And that's fine. Be of service. You don't have to be $1 million producer to help everybody. But try to be open and try to take in everything that the client has to use to the best of their ability to get them the long-term win, right? He was going from 15 to 7, fixed rate, da da da. He had to bring a couple of nickels to close it, and it was not a problem. That blew my mind at the time. Now I'm
Nickels
like,
to
yo,
close
what do
it.
we do? Like, how much you need? Like, you know, like, I need you to bring 30. Like, I tell you, you gotta bring $200,000. Oh, come on. To me, it's nothing now. But
Yeah.
20 years ago, I was like, yo, I don't even know how I'm gonna say this to the guy. Like, I was scared, right? So I just want to say that too, because like, you know, we have people that are starting, then we have people that might be further ahead of us, but we have to be aware of who we're talking to.
That's very important. Know your audience. And I actually, I talk about that a lot. And actually, I did one when I was just a few episodes back where I interviewed a public speaking coach, and she's like, it is so important for you to know who you're talking to. And
Yes.
she's like, you got to do research on your audience. And that, that makes sense here too. It's not only when you're doing a speaking engagement, but when you're working with one-on-one clients, know who you're talking to. It's so important. Omar, this has been really amazing. So is there anything you want to say before, maybe, any other gems that you got, under your arm there?
I got a few things, but I'm gonna say one thing because this was on my mind recently. I've had a conversation. You're not nervous because you did anything wrong. You're nervous because you're not prepared. So remember that, guys.
Yeah, be
The more you
prepared.
prepare, the less nervous you're gonna be. Nothing's gonna rock you because you. I'm not saying you can anticipate every scenario, but going back to knowing your audience, like if I would have paid attention, or actually, you know what? Back then it was stated. If I would have known this was what we had available to us, I would have been better at financially advising him. Not that I'm a financial advisor, but a mortgage. I'm a creative lender, so I would have known this works. But again, I was 29, 30 years old. I know shit, and I'm like, yo, man, like this is what I got. And he gave me a solution, and he opened my eyes to everything. He was like, look, man, over 30 years, I win. And then I've had clients
That's
like
true.
now,
That's
I
true.
have good friends of mine. I'm like, yo, listen, we bring in $5,000, but we're dropping your payment $1,000 a month for the rest of your mortgage. So you're up month 6, month 12, you're up double. And I'm like, and they're like, hell, fuck yeah. Like, like now they're like, yeah, I understand. Like, I see. But before it was hard for me to do that because I didn't know, because I didn't come from anything. Right now that I have a little bit, I'm like, oh, this is how you maneuver this stuff. This is how you move these assets, or this is how you move your liabilities around and make it work for you. All right. So know your audience, get prepared, and keep learning. Those are the 3 things I would say.
That's so true, man. I love that, Omar. And how can people find you on social media or your email or whatever you want to put in there?
Ask Luis Omar on every platform. Ask Luis Omar at my website. Ask Luis Omar LinkedIn. Ask Luis Omar Instagram. TikTok. Modi. You want to talk business? Hit me on Modi chat. Ask Luis Omar. That's the app I actually invested in.
Ask Luis Omar.
Ask Luis
I
Omar.
love that, man.
All
I
right.
really appreciate your time.
Thank
I
you.
always end off my episodes the same way. Guys, don't be a basic biscuit.
Don't be a basic bitch. I'm sorry, biscuit.